Welcome to the Perfect Pairing Podcast. The cigar of the week this week is the second cigar that we've had in the Cigar of the Week lineup from Warfighter Tobacco. This is the 7.62 millimeter Garrison Rosado.
But before we get to that, if you guys don't know who we are, my name is Chris, and I am the whiskey expert, but the cigar noob.
And I'm Adam, and I'm the cigar expert, but the whiskey noob.
And if you guys weren't here for this the last episode that we had Warfighter Tobacco, I was a huge fan. That cigar, the night shift from them, was like, it's probably top 3 cigars for me, honestly. I think it's sitting in the top 3.
And for those of you that are in the Perfect Pairing Club, I know that a lot of you loved it because we got a lot of requests for like information on it. We got a lot of just people saying like, "Oh my gosh, that Warfighter was so good." We even got, people ordering the 3 packs and those are pretty much gone. Like everybody loved that cigar, so we knew we had to get Warfighter back on. So let's see if the 7.62 millimeter Garrison Rosado sounds like it's gonna be something that could kill you, but it won't.
Yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
is medium bodied. It's kind of medium full. This cigar is actually really interesting. I was looking it up a little bit before the episode. So this is a Habano Puro
Oh,
and a
okay.
Nicaraguan Puro. It's a Nicaraguan Habano Puro. So we've got a Habano Rosado wrapper, and then we've got a Habano filler, and then we've got three different Habano binder. Then we've got three different Habano fillers from different valleys in Nicaragua. So it's like
Wow.
that's very like straightforward, but also like interesting because people usually aren't that straightforward in their cigars with Habano all the way through and all the way through with Nicaragua. So this is going to be an interesting one. I've had a couple of these, but I had not experienced it before we had the opportunity to work with them.
Yeah, I'm gonna try my best not to be biased here because I like the other one so much. But I already am feeling like I feel like this has a ton of flavor to it. What kind of a price range? This sounds so much like a planned question, and I swear it's not. What kind of a price range are these guys in? And is this the same price range as the night shift, or like where are they sitting?
For as much as I know, I'm looking it up right now, the price range. But for
Okay.
as much as I know, they're very similar. Let's see what we got here. And so yeah, it's right around like the $11 to $13 range, depending on where you are, and that's exactly where the night shift lands. So
Wow.
it's a yeah, very 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 well priced cigar.
I feel like it's so full bodied in terms of the amount of flavor, but it doesn't have like the punchiness that full bodied cigars usually have, like the strong pepper. And I feel like both of the cigars we've had from them have been that way, and I think that's what I'm liking about it. It's got
Yeah,
like the big dark flavors that a lot of those cigars have, but it doesn't have this like I don't punchy sounds like such a bad word. Like it sounds worse than it is because some people love that type of a flavor.
hmm
But yeah, peppery, strong
I mean, it's got the
taste to
Habano
it.
spice, like
Yeah,
it's, and I think the reason that you like it so much is because you like Corojo, and like we've said, they're cousins. Like Habano
true.
and Corojo are cousins, very similar in flavor profile. And that's like before this, I was actually thinking of you. I was like, I don't know if Chris will like this more than the Night Shift because you just, you hailed it as your top three cigars ever. But
Yeah,
it's right up, the alley of the cigars that you've enjoyed so far in terms of, if this was a Corojo Puro all the way through, then you might, yeah, you might be very, very, very excited.
definitely, definitely. Yeah, I don't think it's to the point of the night shift for me, but it's still like above most cigar. Like above I feel like I like this more than if I were to go into a random brick and mortar and grab a random cigar. I feel like I like this more. Like most likely I'm going to prefer this to it. So it's like an above average cigar. That was a really long-winded way of saying this is an above average cigar for me.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. But I mean, it is. And I think it's interesting because it does remind me of tasting a Habano Fuma. Like,
Mm,
it does remind me of just like what that tastes like when you're blending cigars, of what like a Habano, just one single Habano leaf would be. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a cool experience in that sense for those of you out there that like are intrigued about like the next step of cigars and stuff and blending cigars and what that world looks like. I mean, this is about the flavor of what Habano gives you in its truest form, just some different valleys and stuff to give it some complexity. But it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
cool. That's an interesting way of it's an interesting approach that they took to
Yeah.
the cigar.
Yeah, it's a bold move because like it's either gonna work really well or it's not gonna work at all. Like it could just be one dimensional and fall flat. So I'm glad it worked because in my opinion, like I said, really good cigar. Which actually, so that was a question that I wanted to ask you. And I forgot about it because I was enjoying the cigar. So no noob review yet. You guys got to wait a couple minutes. I wanted to ask this. Okay, buying cigars in other countries, especially South American countries. So let me tell you a little story. So
Oh boy.
so I went to Punta Cana earlier this year, and of course, there's people there selling cigars that are not associated with cigar shops. They're just walking around with sealed boxes of cigars, which they have plastic wrap on them and stuff. Um, how do you know if they're bootleg cigars or not? Let me put it this way. So I bought 10 Arturo Fuentes. I forget what type. Not like a high-end Fuente. Well, I should put that in quotes. Arturo Fuentes in air quotes. uh, for like I think it was a little less than $4 a piece. It came out to like $40 for 10 of these. How do you know if they're real or not, or if they're not real? My logic was $4 is a fantastic price, so I can at least have them for friends that come over. But I also don't want to give my friends something that has like legit sawdust in it. So it's a loaded question. But where do you stand on all of that?
So I know a little bit about this topic. I don't know everything about it. I was in a mission trip senior year of high school. And I was 18 and I went down there and I bought like 20 Cubans for $20. So I do believe that I got ripped off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I know a thing that I noticed in those is they kept going out because they were improperly
Oh.
rolled. Um, so it's a very, especially if it was not a Cuban, there's a very high chance that you're getting what they call segundos, seconds. And
Ah,
those
okay.
are cigars that are sold on the secondary market, not like whiskey secondary market, but like,
Mm-hmm.
secondary market like in Nicaragua and in those third world countries where like they're not going to throw them away and they just sell them like sometimes they'll sell them to Swisher Sweets and things like that and they'll grind them up and put it in, those things like
Ah.
so like bad tobacco gets, they try, these guys are farmers too, so they try and get their most yield from their crop. So,
Yes, yeah.
there's a little bit of that play in there. So there's a chance that you got those. That's what a lot of like, people will say like, man, I got this like $5 cigar from this like random, hole in the wall in Tampa, and like most of the time those are segundos. They're buying secondary cigars that didn't make the cut for a big company, but somebody will buy them for $4. So these guys will go buy them for like 50 cents.
So
And
you're saying they're buying them like basically unbanded as segundos. So like it's not
correct.
like okay, okay. So it's like
Um,
let's say for the sake of argument, Fuente made these, but they were really bad. So then they sold them unbanded and were like, "Here, go, you can go sell them super cheap."
well, it could have been Aganorsa that sold them, and then they wanted to sell them for more, so they put an Arturo Fuente band on
Ah,
it.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's where it gets, that's where it can get fuzzy down there. It's like
Yeah.
people will fake anything, and the
Yeah.
number one thing I thought you were gonna say is Cubans, obviously down there. Like,
Right.
how do you know? Because they're legal. How do you know? What you're getting is legitimate or not. Um, Cohibas, they do have all those holographic things. You can look it up. I've done a video on it. A lot
Mhm.
of people have done videos on it. So you can look those up. They got to have all the holograms. I think there's 3 on the band alone. Um,
Mhm.
and then there is a website as well that you can type in. If you get the box, there's a code on the box um, that'll tell you the exact farm
Oh
um,
wow.
it
Okay.
that it was made in. So there's that. And a Cuban brand will never sell a cigar with a glass top.
With plastic on it, like cellophane?
No, with a glass top. They will never
With a
sell.
glass top.
Yeah,
Okay.
they
Okay.
will never sell a cigar box with a glass top, and you see it all the time down there because they want to
Oh.
show you the cigars and like people because they've got the fake. They're good. Like they're good at
Hmm.
faking it. Like
Yeah.
very good. Um, and the funny thing is too, a lot of them are segundos, and they're really not that bad. Like
So that was the follow-up question. Yeah, because I kind of assumed, assumed at best, I'm getting the worst, lowest shelf possible Arturo Fuente, and at worst, I'm getting something no human being should smoke. So I was hoping I was landing somewhere in the middle because I'm like, $4. If it's somewhere in the middle, if it's like all chopped up shredded lettuce that they're just rolling in and it burns, all right, I'm okay with that.
yeah, I mean you're definitely getting short fills probably as well. It's not long filler cigars.
Mm-hmm.
So it is chopped up. Like there's a high chance that those cigars, if legit, were the tobacco in them was at some point on the floor of the factory, swept up into a pile,
Mm.
ground down, and then rolled, bound, and put a wrapper on it. And you'll always be able to know because the ash won't hold on a short fill.
Ah, okay, okay.
Because part of the leaf, like in a premium cigar, like this one right here, goes all the way through. So like you'll
Okay.
know if it falls off quickly
I
and
thought about
oddly.
cutting one just to see what's on the inside.
You should. You should. That'd be
I
a
might. I
cool.
might.
That'd be a cool post.
Mm-hmm.
To just say like this is what it is, and then you find long filler, and you're like, damn, I always hit a cigar that I bought for $4. And like the price that doesn't shock me. Like down there things are a lot cheaper, and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have import export costs like we do in the U.S. Like so you could sell
True.
a cigar in Punta Cana for you probably could sell it for $4. Taxes, like probably nicer. Like you probably could legitimately sell a cigar for $4 and make some money.
Good point. I should have haggled a little harder. Hmm.
Yeah, potentially,
Huh.
but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
it's an
interesting.
interesting thing, but I don't think there's any exact science. So go at your
Yeah,
own risk.
yeah.
That's the truth.
I was curious because you hear like, well, you definitely hear that most of the time if you're not buying from a legitimate cigar shop down there, that you're probably getting at best a knockoff of that's like a decent cigar, but it's not
Segundo.
what they say
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, a segundo, exactly.
yeah.
But then you also get horror stories where it's like, do not smoke one of those cigars, and so I was wondering where the truth lies, on that scale.
It's interesting.
Um,
I've never fallen for the horror stories too deep, but the other
mhm.
side of the thing is I bring my own cigars everywhere. I went to
Yeah.
Cancun, because I like a lot of times when I travel, I don't know if you're at a resort, but that's the exact opposite. Like I didn't bring cigars on my honeymoon because I was trying to be nice to my wife because we just got married and I didn't want. I was
Yeah.
like, look, I won't bring cigars. Cigars are my whole life. I'm not gonna bring them. You're my life now. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So I didn't bring any, and then she was like, you should have brought some cigars, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't do it on purpose because I thought you'd be happy.
Hmm.
She's like, well, I want you to relax. We're in Jamaica. I'm like, so I go to like the resort shop and they've got Jamaican cigars in there, 5 for 75. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh my
That
gosh,
was how the resort shop was where I was. It was literally like, well, we hand rolled these. And I'm like, first of all, probably not. Second of all, it's still $25. Like, I'm not going to buy this
yeah,
cigar.
yeah, and I bought them because I
Did you?
was like,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I was
You
like,
don't have a choice.
yeah, well, I was just like, yeah, I did really want one. It sounded like a great time.
Hmm.
Like it was a beautiful place. It's that's what better time to smoke a cigar, relax, and look over a beautiful ocean, and all this. I was like, yeah, I really want a cigar. And she's like, why didn't you bring any? I'm like, shit.
Hey, when in Rome, it's worth
Yeah.
it.
Yep. I bring them from now on. Yeah. We went on our anniversary down to Cancun this year. I brought them.
Definitely. Yeah, I do too now. Yeah. That's a lesson you learn. I think you only need to learn once.
100%. So what are you getting out of this cigar?
I'm glad that we talked because I was really taking some time to think about it. So I feel like for sure I'm getting the darker notes that for me right now are reminding me of a leather in a little bit of like a chocolate cookie, like specifically a baked. chocolate, not like just like a chocolate bar. You know, make maybe a brownie or a chocolate flavored cookie or something like that. Um, so definitely those darker notes, and then maybe something a little bit lighter, like creaminess or something like that.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wouldn't say I'm getting the cookie. Surprise, surprise. But
Didn't see that coming.
um, but I do definitely get the leather.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I'm kind of confused about is I thought it was gonna have more spice, and I felt like it did in the beginning, especially on the retrohale. But now it's really mellowing out, like a lot more than I was anticipating out of a habano.
Definitely, I for sure was just like not a lot of spice at all. I feel like
Hmm.
leather was the most obvious. That was the one where when I lit it, I was like, wait, there's something here. Oh, it's leather. Like that one is there for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Everything else was kind of like, oh, yeah, maybe. Definitely on the retro hill. Definitely had to really think about it. But overall, I love that you're getting those type of flavors without getting too much spice. It's like a refreshing change
yeah,
of pace.
yeah,
It's like when a bourbon has the super sweet vanilla notes without the oaky notes. You're like, I like oaky notes, but this is cool that I'm getting this without that for once. It's weird.
yeah. I think this is a really enjoyable beginner cigar for somebody that
Mm-hmm.
like doesn't they want something, they want a little something in it. They don't just want to, kind of smoke some of the Connecticut's that are so light it's like air. But yeah,
Yes.
I'm pretty impressed. I just felt like I didn't remember. I felt like the little spice was in there, but we'll
Mm-hmm.
see as it goes through these pairings. I think it's actually going to do a great job with these. So we'll
I
see.
agree. Yeah. I'm really hoping it's so much more level headed than I thought it was as a cigar. So I'm like excited. I feel like it could work. Okay, like I'm gonna do it. I this is the second time I've done this off the cuff. What's gonna work the best with it? My guess is pairing number 2, Rabbithole Dareringer.
Mine is number one, the Mary Dowling.
Okay. All
And I
right.
almost took a sip. I did not take a sip yet,
I did take a sip, so I cheated a little bit because I didn't think of it till after I took a
though.
sip.
That's all right.
But
That's all
all
right.
right, so pairing number 1, we've got Mary Dowling Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. This is their winter wheat bottle. This is pretty new. From the same folks who brought you Rabbit Hole. So obviously that's why we're having both in this episode, because we also have the bottle from Rabbit Hole. And my only experience with this was literally earlier today, where I was like, I need to know what this tastes like so that I can pair it, and so I tasted it, and I was very impressed. I have no idea how much it costs, so I need to look that up. The
Huh.
bottle looks like it might cost a lot of money, but super tasty bourbon, kind of like the cigar, where it has the full bourbon notes, but it's not very spicy. It's
Yeah.
also not super high proof.
I was going to say, what's the proof on this? I don't think I checked.
It's on the
91.
back, 91. Yep.
Well, I can tell you, yeah, I really like this whiskey too. I've only had, one glass. See guys, I don't drink all the things that Chris
Yeah.
and I get. Um,
I didn't give him much time this time.
no, these are all actually very full bottles. You'd be proud of me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but no, I really enjoyed it. I think it's complex, yet approachable, is what I
Mm-hmm.
would say. And it's almost like you said, and the same thing with the cigar. And um, right, right off the first sip, I think this is going to be good. I can't say anything yet on this first going from whiskey to cigar here, but I had a first sip, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go back to the cigar after I take another sip.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to be right.
That's a
Just
bold
saying.
move.
Just saying. I think
Yeah.
I'm right.
Hey. I appreciate it. Shoot your shot, man. Um, I feel like first impression going from whiskey to cigar. I'm not trying to just crap all over your prediction, but I feel like the cigar lost something I was really liking. It's definitely changing, so that's good. And I haven't nailed down what I am getting from it. What I'm noticing is it lost what I think I was calling the chocolate cookie. It's not there as much. The leather I think is still there. There's something that's gone from it.
I could see the cookie part being gone because it was never there in the beginning, but
Oh, clever.
um, I it may just be a difference in palate because I'm
Hmm.
really enjoying it. And again, it's the same thing. You're not just shitting on me. I'm not just trying to praise what I was guessing on.
Yeah.
Like the leather is elevated and then the little spice comes through. I think
Mm-hmm.
now it's a true medium, almost medium full like flavor. It tastes like it's that bold, and I'm really enjoying that elevation because I think I was kind of wanting it a little bit from that
Mm-hmm.
cigar in the beginning, and I wasn't getting it. So this is this is what I wanted out of it. So I'm happy going from the Mary Dowling over to the 7.62 millimeter Garrison Rosado here.
Okay. You know what? For sure, the spicy got cranked up. For sure,
Yeah.
I will give you that. And I think, and maybe that's like one of the reasons I don't like it is because like I was so floored by the lack of spice with the leather and the chocolate. So, like you said, it might be a difference of palate here. I'm also gonna cushion everything I say today. I'm giving myself a get out of jail free card. As of the recording of this, I got home from the Kentucky Bourbon Festival 2 days ago, and my palate could not possibly be more fried. It could only be more fried if we recorded this on Sunday night when I got home. So I am by the end of KBF, I was like tasting cotton balls. Everything I tasted was just like, oh, yep, that's whiskey. So to be fair, um, now jumping from the 7.62 millimeter over to the Mary Dowling, I feel like two things happened. The Mary Dowling, especially on the nose, which usually the nose doesn't change very much, the nose is way sweeter. Like I got like a sweet fruit candy on the nose. On the palate, I feel like it's a little bit more sour or a little bit more salty. Like it's got like a little bit of a briny taste to it.
Do you feel like it elevated the proof as well?
A little bit. Yeah, which I didn't know if that's just me because once again,
Yeah.
most whiskey right now is burning my tongue a little bit. So
No, I think it almost gets elevated over to 100 proof. I had to do it again and then like give my palate a reset just for like not go back and forth too fast because I was like whoa, like why did you do that to the whiskey? I did not see that coming. It was definitely a little harsher of a elevation than I anticipated and that I really
mm-hmm,
wanted because I think I wanted this to be antagonistic, but I did
mm-hmm,
not assume it was going to be at all. Like I just really love this whiskey where it is. I think the elevation, the spice adds a little play that I wasn't, really happy with in terms of again like where it was, but
mm-hmm.
not something bad. And then I do get that sour, like kind of sweet and sour finish like on the tongue. Like it lingers in
Yeah.
your mouth and like that is really pleasant. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know anymore if I will say that this is going to be number one, but overall, I think it's a good one. It's just now that we've got to rate this right now. Oh, that is a tough rating. I wish I had some, points to work off of. That was
I
another
know,
one.
dude. It's now that we moved to this, it makes us more honest, I think. We don't overthink it so much, but it is so scary when you haven't had the chance to
Yeah,
try it with something else.
yeah. I'm gonna go from cigar back to the whiskey. See exactly how much I'm enjoying or not enjoying that change, and then I'm ready.
Okay, okay. I will give a long intro into my rating because there is more that I want to say. Because when I went back to it, I was like, okay, something's happened. I like after going back and forth a few times, I now do enjoy the cigar more. Not more than by itself because I really liked the cigar by itself, but at first I was pretty disappointed in the way the 7.62 was tasting. Now I'm like, okay, that's actually not too bad. I it After you said that about the spice, it kind of unlocked it for me. Where I was like, you know what? Yeah, it's just a little bit more spice here with that leather. The whiskey, I agree. I'm not a fan of the way that it changed, and it's a shame because, as we both said before the pairing, I love this whiskey. It's really good. We're gonna have to do it with something else and try it again, um, because I'm convinced there's something really good out there for it. But with this, I'm just feeling like it's a wheated bourbon, so you really want it to be like nice and sweet, and it has that body to it. The body kind of goes away and it kind of becomes more sour. So that for me, it just made the bourbon a little bit worse.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I hear you on that. So I'm ready. I'm upset at the rating, but
Yeah.
it is true. This is an 8 flat for me.
8 flat. Okay, well, that's okay because for me, I have a 6.7 actually. I bumped it down
Oh
decently.
no.
The big thing for me was I loved the bourbon before the cigar. So like coming from the bourbon side of things, if you made my bourbon taste worse, I'm not gonna be a big fan, you know?
Very, very fair. That is a very fair judgment call. Yeah, and I liked how the cigar changed, so that's probably pretty accurate. But it was an
Yeah,
interesting one, but I think disappointing on both of our ends because it felt like it had so much potential.
definitely. Which now we're gonna put my guess to the test, so hopefully it works out. Pairing number 2, we've got Rabbithole Dareringer. This is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey that is then finished in PX sherry casks, so Pedro Jimenez sherry casks, and it has a wonderful kind of it. The bourbon comes through nicely, but it also gets this like deep fruity plummy flavor, which is just fantastic by itself. So I haven't gone to the cigar yet, but going from whiskey to cigar, I'm really hoping that we get that transfer of fruit flavor. That's like my hope for this pairing. We'll see.
Yeah, I will have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Is the first pour a myth that it's off? Like sometimes, or they call
It
it the
really
neck, I
is
guess.
the neck pour. Yeah. So that's a good question. So the very, very quick rundown. The myth is that there's a neck pour of the whiskey. So the part of the whiskey that's in the neck is going to taste the worst. And it's not actually because it's in the neck, it's because the whiskey hasn't been exposed to any air yet. And the fact behind that is some whiskeys it's the case, some whiskeys it's not. Some whiskeys, when you get a little bit of air in them, they taste better. Some whiskeys, when you get a little bit of air in them, they taste worse. So I actually did a podcast episode where I took a brand new bottle of Buffalo Trace, a bottle that was about like a few months old and had about half of it drank, and then a bottle that was really old. And I ranked them all blind, and it was directly in order of how long they'd been opened. It got worse the longer it was opened, actually.
Wow.
Um, but I know for certain Old Forester 100 proof I reviewed, was not a big fan, went back to it a few weeks later after it sat on my shelf and really enjoyed it, which can sometimes be palate conditions, but sometimes you can tell there's a change in the whiskey.
Yeah, I've had one pour of this Rabbit Hole Derringer as well, and I got a lot more flavor this time. I remembered it
Oh.
being a little harsher, the first pour. Um, so I was very, very pleasantly surprised. I was like, oh my gosh, like it's like level two to the Mary Dowling. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
with that addition of that dark fruit note that you were talking about. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then going from the rabbit hole,
It got me.
we have an
Freaking
ash
got
hole,
me.
everybody. Hey, that's two to
Damn it.
one. Just so you know, that's 2-1. I've only had one. You've had two.
And I knew I needed to ash. All right. Anyway, proceed. Sorry.
Yeah, the ashes have been holding good. This is my second ash on this one, so
Yeah, mine
props.
that was my first. It held for a long time. I should have done it. I forgot because I was talking too much.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. It was a good ash, and I'm just happy I'm not tied with you anymore on that. Um, but going from the Derringer to the Warfighter 7.62 millimeter here, uh, I really noticed dark. Like now, this
Mm-hmm.
the Garrison Rosado is like a Maduro, but like a sweet
Mm-hmm.
Maduro, like not like a heavy hitter like anything like that. It's just like it's a really good, flavorful, bold Maduro, and it's super interesting. This might be one of those cigars. I know your other one was rated low, but I feel like this is a cigar that could the cigar itself could play with almost any pairing, but it might
Mm-hmm.
mess up the pairing the what it's pairing with. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Like it is letting the pairings influence it. Couldn't agree more that it got darker. This is like double chocolate dark brownie. Like dark chocolate brownie for me. Like it the cigar flavor is dark and sweet, and I am a big fan. It almost pushes it more towards the night shift a little bit, actually. Like it has that dark sweetness to it. Um, so yeah, going from the Derringer to the Warfighter Garrison, I feel so far good pairing for me. So far, it's doing something I like. We'll see what happens when we go back though.
Yeah, I just went from that Garrison Rosado over to the Derringer, and whoa, something about this cigar. I would love to do a test on this if it's Habano that's doing this, and like go back and watch all of our episodes. But it is super elevated. It almost tastes like, in my opinion, like a 115 proof. Like,
Mm-hmm.
are you getting the same thing?
Yeah, I mean the same way where it's making it more. It tastes like it's higher proof. Doesn't like burn your mouth more, but makes it taste higher proof. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's super
Mm-hmm.
interesting. It's because it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call it spice
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. I would just call it like kick, which
Yeah,
or like which is weird.
it's almost just like salt and pepper, like that type of like you mix a little salt and pepper into the whiskey. I feel like
Yeah, it's that's interesting. This cigar is freaking unique, man. And
definitely.
how is a cigar that's very straightforward, very unique? You know, it's kind of
Yeah,
crazy that it's got all the same tobacco and it's doing. I guess it's doing the same thing consistently. So maybe Habano just elevates the proof of the whiskey. That is
yeah.
something that we got to try and remember to like test in the future when we got some more Habano cigars.
That is a good idea. You know, a good episode. I just thought of this actually. A good episode would be like 3 different fumas with one whiskey, and like see how each specific one affects the whiskey.
We may have to figure out a way to do that.
That could be fun, or even a bonus episode or something. That could be fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, the one positive thing I want to say about jumping from the Garrison to the Derringer is I do feel like the plumminess still comes through. Like the proof is elevated. It's definitely briny, but I do feel like it's like a dusty fruit that comes through, which is very pleasant, but it still took away some of the body of the whiskey.
I think I nailed what I think the flavor is like. It's like you smoked the whiskey.
Hmm.
Like that's what I think is which is kind of funny. Obviously, it's sort of happening. We're smoking with the whiskey,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like you like smoked it, but almost for just almost a little too long. Like not terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've had a very. I am not a fan of like extraordinarily smoked old fashions. I feel like it
Mm-hmm.
tastes like a campfire, and you just ruined all flavors that were in there. Um,
Yeah.
but this one's like not too, but almost too smoked.
I could see that. Like it's like the dustiness that I mentioned with the
Mm.
fruit. It's like that smoke flavor. But then it also to me, it's this is gonna sound so dumb. It's almost like it's watered down but higher proof, if that makes sense. Like the flavor's watery. Like there's less body, like less volume of flavor to the whiskey.
Yeah,
And
I
I
think the
think that's the part of
smokiness
it that
is
I'm not
muting it.
liking. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
definitely.
Nailed it. Okay.
Um, go ahead.
Ranking time. That's all I was gonna
Yeah.
say. Yeah, I was like, all right. I think I have mine actually. Um, it's just so. I think it's more. It's just a. It's just different. Like these two pairings so far is like apples and oranges a little bit. So it's kind of hard to gauge it off of each other, which is good because we'll just say the true pairing. Um, so I'll go ahead and say mine. Mine's
Sure.
an 8.3.
8.3. Okay. I had a similar jump in score. You went from an 8 to an 8.3. I went from a 6.7. I'm at a 7.2 now. So it's definitely, I think it's better, especially for what happened with the cigar. I feel like the flavor of the cigar really carried this pairing. But the cigar did not necessarily help the whiskey too much. Both of these I love so much that we have to pair with something else because I'm wondering. They're both very soft and sweet with a lot of body. I'm wondering if they need like a Connecticut to let them flex a little bit more. You know, something a little bit lighter. I don't know.
Could be interesting. Yeah, that could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now number three here. I am super intrigued. I did not. Neither of us guessed this to be the best. So if it is, I'll be shocked.
Yeah, very good point. So number 3, we've got Westward Whiskey. This is their stout cask finish. Let me try to get it closer. The camera doesn't want to adjust right now. That's okay. You can Google it if you're watching the video version. Westward Whiskey. So this is an American single malt. They come out with a bunch of different American single malts. Typically, they have that nice barley flavor, but I think I mentioned last time we had one on, but they have like a little kick to them, which I really enjoy. Like just a little bit of a spice or something to them. And this is finished with stout casks. So I have zero clue what it's going to do to the cigar because we've never had that on the show, to my knowledge. I
No.
should have mentioned too, the Derringer was 93 proof, and this guy is 46%. What is that? 92 92. Yeah,
92.
92.
So
So,
they're all. I mean, the proof is even across the board here,
mm-hmm.
and that it's the American single malt tingling, I guess, on my palate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
It's
that
probably
yeah
that they, like I said, Westward stuff has a little bit of a pepper, or a spice to it. I bet that's giving you some tingle. It also, it's hard to just go from whiskey to cigar when we've been smoking the cigar this whole time. So I noticed on my first sip of the whiskey that it seems to have the most body out of all three, which is not necessarily the case when you're not having a cigar with it. But
yeah
it
I
just
would agree with that.
tonight, it's tasting that way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would agree with that. It's interesting. I as a whiskey noob, I struggle with this one. I remember tasting it when we got these bottles in, and I was like, I that stout cask really throws me off like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I because the stout comes out a lot. Like in my opinion, more than any port or cabernet or rum, any sort of rum, like brandy.
Mm-hmm.
All those casks, I feel like this is the cask that comes out the most.
That's funny that you say that because actually, for my palate, I didn't notice it as much. But I wonder if it's because I love like wine finishes and things so much that I like focus on them and I know what to look for. So I feel like the fact that you tasted it tells me I wasn't looking for the right thing, if that makes sense. And I can see a difference in it. And I'm not disagreeing with you because I think a lot of people feel that way about stout casks. I feel like that might be why they're not super popular.
Hmm.
Is because like not I shouldn't say not super popular. They're not common. That's the
Yeah,
word I'm looking for.
yeah.
You don't see them very often. Um, but going from the whiskey to the cigar, so Westward Stout Cask over to the Garrison, I have a strong opinion. Have you tried it yet?
I have. I'm very intrigued to hear about your strong opinion.
For sure, the cigar changed. I mean, like,
Yes.
huge change. Some kind of a sweetness that I don't know exactly what it is. The first thing that came to mind was peachiness, but then when I looked for it again, I was like, nah, I don't think that's peach, but there's something super different about it.
Interesting. I was noticing a very strong stout. Like that
Mm.
stout got like here it is, there it is, and maybe I was gonna say this before we transferred is over to the pairing itself is the stout cask might be very prevalent for me because I used to drink a lot of stouts.
Oh, okay.
So I
Okay.
used to love stouts. I had, everybody has a brewery phase, at least,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people do. I had one like, I don't know, 3 years ago, and I drank a bunch of stouts. Like even in the summer, I was drinking stouts. I loved them. I just like the chocolatiness in them and all this sort of stuff. And I think that chocolatiness, if that's
Ooh.
a word, is coming out in this cigar uh, now for me. Like, if you want to talk about a cookie, I'll give you this one little something.
Mm.
Don't get too excited. Just a little something I'll give you. This is like a chocolate chip cookie that's a chocolate cookie. You know what I'm
A
talking about?
Oh yes, like a chocolate cookie
It's a
with
chocolate
chocolate
cookie
chips, like
with
double
chocolate
chocolate.
chips. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Dude, I can totally see that actually. Like I feel like I still think so I should preface this. I also love stouts when I drink beer, which is very rare. So I don't necessarily know the flavor of stouts the greatest. Um but that being said, I feel like so I mentioned there's a sweetness to it. I think I was off with peach. You know what it reminds me of is like a fruit chocolate combo. Like chocolate covered strawberries or chocolate and blueberries or something along that line. Totally agree with you that the chocolate's deepened. Like the thing that I already thought was chocolate cookie is more prevalent, probably less leather and more of that sweetness, I would say.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Now going back from the Garrison to the Westward American Single Malt Stout Cask, I'm just getting chocolate. I'm just
Mhm.
getting chocolate both ways, and it's like it's a very sorry guys, I got a speed racer out there if you can hear him, but it's really hard to say. I said the last one's apple and oranges. If that's apple orange, this is like steak. It's
Yeah.
like, well,
Yeah.
it's like where do you rate? Like, go ahead and rate 1 through 3. Apple, orange, steak. It's like, well,
Definitely.
that's difficult. I mean, I would pick steak, but
Another good reason that we do the ratings separately now, honestly, because
yeah,
these are apple, orange, and steak. Now going backwards, I couldn't agree with you more. The stout cask is chocolatey. Like it.
yeah,
I feel like the barley of the single malt gives it like the flavor that is cookie. That's not just chocolate, but is like cookie. But then it's chocolate cookie. The stout finish is like the chocolate. Like it's
yeah.
there. 100%. Like it almost tastes like watered down. Oh, dude, that was so specific. It just popped into my brain. Yoo-hoo. It kind of tastes like Yoo-hoo a little bit. Have you ever had a Yoo-hoo?
Yes,
Dude, that's
yes.
what it tastes like.
That I mean, like almost exactly.
Yeah, yeah. It tastes like alcohol Yoo-hoo, basically.
So if you like Yoo-hoo, here's a pairing for you guys, right? And like, I mean,
Big fan. I used
there
to
you
have
go.
Yoo-hoos all the time. So you can see where this ranking is going for me because, yeah, big fan of Yoo-hoos and big fan of chocolatey cigars. Um, Definitely a winner. I won't reveal mine because I don't want to bias you. And I also haven't written it down yet. I got to lock it in my brain.
I'll give you a second. While I'm surprised and while it's a playful pairing, I nearly think the flavors change so much like chocolate that it almost feels like it's like the same way I look at smoking an infused cigar. Like it's just too much for me. There's too much
Okay.
not whiskey and not cigar. That's
Mm-hmm.
how much the
Mm-hmm.
flavors are changing. So that's I wanted to say that because if you just like Chris is I think kind of showing his ratings is if you
Mm-hmm.
love that sort of thing and if you love chocolate, you should just if you're a chocolate like fiend, this is I don't think you're going to find a better pairing unless you do like chocolate liqueur, I guess. That would probably work.
Yeah.
But um I got a 7.9. These guys are all right next to each other for me. They're again apple orange steak, so I'm keeping them right in the same. I think I enjoyed them truly nearly equally, and I think my ratings really do represent that this time. Like the Derringer was a clear winner, but not a far fetched winner. Like
Mm-hmm.
I got 7.9, I got 8, I've got 8.3. Like the Derringer was a clear winner, but yeah, just the flavor was too much. The chocolate was way too much. I'm like, I wanted a cigar and a whiskey, not dessert.
Right.
So
I get that. I get that. For me, I felt like this is the only pairing where I felt like the whiskey changed in a good way. Like I felt like it didn't get worse. Maybe it got a little bit better, or maybe it was at least a sideways change, which is good. The cigar, I loved the way it made it taste. So I put mine a full point above. I put mine at an 8.9 because I just felt like,
woo,
yeah, it was almost a 9. If the whiskey had more going on, it would have been a 9. But you're totally right that it made it a little bit one dimensional. But if it hadn't done that, I would have had it at a 9 probably.
all right, well now we've got the hardest part. What is your fourth pairing?
Actually, for me, it's not hard this episode because the one thing the whole episode I was kicking myself. I didn't put anything high proof with it. Maybe these are tasting higher proof because they're low proof. Like they're maybe the flavor's getting steamrolled. So I would do something way higher proof. I'm picturing Hard Truth Sweet Mash Rye. I'm thinking that would have been good with this.
I know this is gonna sound very basic, but I want to try it with Woodford Reserve.
Okay, nothing wrong with that at all.
I think the cigar before it got influenced by any of these pairings, that's the flavor that I'm picturing, and I think it would, like the Habano straightforward, Woodford Reserve
Mm-hmm.
straightforward, like it's a very, like it's, you know what you're getting. I think those would gel well in a very boring but beautiful way.
I could see that. That's an interesting thought. I went like the opposite direction. I'm like, put
Yeah,
something super exciting with it. So
yeah,
I think we're gonna have to try both of those.
yeah. Let's go try them, man. Cheers.
All right, cheers.